Arguments for God that Christians should know, part 2, the moral argument. Okay, so to get into the argument, we're going to be leveraging up William Lane Craig once again, and I'll reference him probably a few times throughout the series, if not every single time, but that's for a really good reason. And I'll have to include that in another video on different resources and go-to people for particular fields within Christian thought, but that'll be for another video. Premise 1. If God does not exist, then objective moral values and duties do not exist. Premise 2. Objective moral values and duties exist. Conclusion, therefore, God exists. So let's actually dive into the objections first. And these are the most common objections that you're likely to hear, or the common pushback that you're likely to hear on this particular argument. Quick remark, I'm not going to go into whether or not a loving God would allow suffering, a loving, omniscient, omnipotent God, whether or not he would allow that. That's its own video in its own right. So we're actually going to skip that, unfortunately, just for now. So we're skipping the theodicy, aka the problem of evil, just for the sake of expanding on this particular argument. The first common objection is, why do we need God in order to be good? And that's a good objection, but it doesn't really get to the heart of the argument. If we're asking whether or not a non-Christian can be good or live a quote-unquote good and moral life, then the answer is actually yes, they can do those things. But that's not really the point of the argument. The argument is whether or not we can actually ground what's good and what's right in reality. That's what we mean by having an objective basis for moral values and moral duties. Without an objective basis for moral values and duties, then we don't really have evil or good, we just have a difference in ethics. So what the Nazis did in World War II, the paradigm example of evil, that's not really actually evil, it's just different than what our current moral values and duties are now. And it's not a question of whether or not we can know what is good and what is bad, with or without God. We can grant that if you are not a Christian, that you can know what is good and what is bad. But again, that's not the point. The point is whether or not there actually is or a good or bad that is grounded in reality.